Alright, welcome back. Today's fly is a Peeping Caddis on a jig hook. This is an awesome fly for any scenario, really. Caddises are pretty abundant in any stream. So this fly will work anywhere, any time of year. This is just an awesome all-around fly. It's on a jig hook because I primarily use this euronymph, but you can tie this on just a standard hook. You could tie it beadless if you want to. However, I think the bead adds a great aspect to this fly. More than just weight, but it adds that nice little, it imitates like the head of the caddis. In the back here we have a fluorescent Chartreuse chenille. We have some soft hackle behind that. It's just a dubbing body, and then we have a black, peacock black ice dub collar, which is really great. Adds just a perfect amount of shine and flash to this fly. So the hooks that we're using are Fulling Mill FM 5125 jig hooks. These hooks I especially love for euronymph flies because the eye of the hook is perpendicular to the bend of the hook. So what that does is that just allows you to get a larger bead onto smaller hooks without it falling off the end. And that's great for euronymph flies, or just whenever you want to get a little extra weight on your fly. It just adds another great aspect. It just adds some flexibility. You can put a lot larger bead on a smaller hook without worrying about it falling off. So I am going to add a little extra weight with some lead wire. I'm using some 0.015 size lead wire, and I'm just going to wrap roughly like 6-7 times. That's just personal preference, how much weight you want on this fly, and then just push it up to the bead. So what's nice about this fly is that there's not a tapered body. So you can add a little bit more lead wraps if you want to without affecting the taper. Now, like I said, we're using some ultra chenille in the standard size and fluorescent chartreuse. So when I add this in, I'm just going to wrap back to the back or the end of the lead wraps and just start tying it in there. And so when I tie this in, I'm just going to start tying it in right at the back of the lead. Just like that, so that's hanging off. So I'm going to cut this off, and the guide that I'm going to use is roughly the same distance from where we stopped tying it in to the bead. I'm going to cut that roughly the same distance. I'm going to cut roughly the same distance and leave that much hanging off the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut just about there. Now, I'm not just going to leave this as is. I'm going to take a lighter and kind of burn the end of this chenille, and it's going to add a really nice aspect. It's going to darken the tip, and it's going to add a nice shape to this chenille too. So I'm just going to add just like that. And I can actually cut a little bit of the end off too. I just think that adds a nice shape. It really kind of mimics the caddis larva itself. So now the next thing we're going to add is the soft hackle. So I just have a cape of soft hackle in grizzly, and I'm just going to pull off one feather that I think I can work with. This is a good one, something roughly this size. So if you have a cape of soft hackle, not all the feathers are going to be the same. So what we're going to do is, based on the length of our fibers here, we're going to adjust where on this hook we're going to tie this in and wrap it. So that way the fibers, whenever we tie them in, are exactly the length that we want them to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this feather and I'm going to splay out all of these fibers just like that. And then I'm gonna just lay them on the hook here so I can kind of see how long they are. So I want the ends of the fibers to be roughly kind of match the end of the chenille here. So when I lay these fibers, when I lay this on here, that looks like a good spot. So I'm going to maybe tie this in a little bit forward from where I currently have. Right there should be good. So I'm going to grab these fibers, pull them back and leave the tip. And then I can tie this piece in just like that. And then I'll tie up a little bit, and then this little extra piece, I'm just going to cut that off. And then now I can take this feather, soft hackle, pull the fibers back, and very carefully, without breaking the stem, start pulling these fibers back, and maybe I'll do like 1.5, maybe 2 wraps, and just secure that in, and then just do a couple more wraps before I cut off the remaining stem. So I know this looks kind of crazy right now, but what's nice about tying this in a little bit farther towards the front of the fly is it doesn't have to be perfect, and we can kind of just pull all these fibers back and then start just wrapping the thread until we tie them into place, until we tie them where we want them to be. So I'm just going to hold them down with my hand, and I'm going to do a couple looser wraps until I get back to the end, until they're all nice and kind of, you can kind of shape this really nice however you want it to. And then that's perfect. That looks really nice. That's just the right amount. You don't want to get too overboard, but you definitely want some there to add some nice shape to the profile of this fly, and it adds, soft hackle's great. It adds great movement in the water. The next thing we're going to do is just do the caddis casing, which we're just going to make out of dubbing. So for that, I have the Hare's Ear Plus dubbing dispenser. It has a whole variety of different color dubbing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the chocolate brown, the tan, and then the just regular Hare's Ear. So I'm just going to pull a little bit out of each of those. And just kind of mix them up. So how I'm going to do this is I have just a whole mixture of them all. I'm just going to keep pulling them apart and overlapping them. And keep pulling them and laying them on top of each other and pulling them apart until they're good and mixed up. See, that looks like a good. I want to go a little bit lighter, so I'm going to do a little bit more of the regular Hare's Ear and just add this in. And do that a couple more times, and then I should be able to make a nice dubbing noodle with this. So the Hare's Ear Plus dubbing I found is pretty difficult to make a really tight noodle, but you don't really need to make a tight noodle. And there's a little trick that I do here that's it'll allow me to get a nice tight dubbing noodle. So as you can see, this dubbing noodle is very loose and very big. So what I'm going to do is once I start tying in and that first little piece of dubbing gets wrapped, I can take my other hand here and twist it and then leave my finger pressure on that and then continue to wrap. So as you see, if I could take my finger off, it comes undone and gets larger again. But if I want to keep a nice dubbing noodle, I'm going to just twist it, keep my finger on it, and then wrap. Then I can just keep repeating that, and it just allows for a lot neater of a dubbing noodle without putting wax on your thread or really putting too much effort in. So obviously I got way too much on there, which is fine. You can save that for the next one. And then just tie up to the bead here, and just have try to make the body like a nice even taper, or you don't want really a taper on it. You just kind of want to even up the whole body. And then I just like to trim it up a little bit. I think it just makes it look neater. I'm looking at like an actual caddis case in the water. They're not, most of them aren't like, don't have a bunch of crazy stuff hanging off. They're usually pretty neat like that. So now we're pretty much done. The last thing that we're going to do is add in the ice dub collar. So I'm using ice dub, just Hareline ice dub, and this is in black Peacock. You can use a regular, just plain black, but you definitely want some kind of black because this is going to mimic the legs of the actual caddis itself. So the bead is like the head of the caddis, and then the dubbing noodle that we did is that's the caddis casing, and then we have like the butt of the caddis back here too. So I'm just going to do another dubbing noodle with that ice dub. And the same trick that we just used for the dubbing for the body, we can do for this too. So you just twist and hold, twist and hold, and then I can just cinch that in. You don't want to go too crazy with this with the collar, the ice dub collar, but just enough to add a little flash. It just adds a nice little aspect to this fly. So now we're about done. This is it. So now we just have to finish the fly, and how I finish pretty much all my flies. Use a little super glue. This is Fly Tire Z-Mint with the brush applicator. If you can get a brush applicator, it's so much better than having the normal dabbing applicator. So what I'll do to finish this fly is I'll just take like the bottom, like 1/4 inch of this thread that's hanging, and I'll just dab a little bit of super glue on there until you see it beads up a little bit. So what that does when I whip finish, that's going to perfectly cover like the entire collar of the fly and just add a lot of durability. And it makes it so I only have to do like 2 or 3 spins. I don't have to do multiple whip finishes. And then I can just cinch that down and the thread broke, but then you just cut it off there. And that is the Peeping Caddis. This is an awesome fly. Any situation really, any size. You can go as small as 22 with this, or even as large as 8 or 10. It's just all around, it's a great fly to have in your box. So tie it up, give it a shot, test it out, and if there's another fly you'd like to see tied, let me know, leave a comment. I'll be doing a bunch more of these videos, so I appreciate you watching. Yeah, thanks.